There we go. And the wrong microphone selected. How's it going, everybody? Good to see you. Tom Mills here. Time for our weekly Bible study. We're going through the book of Luke. We're going to be in Luke 14 tonight. Continuing on. Definitely, I think, finishing Luke 14. Oh, somebody's not happy in there. Hey there, everybody. Hey, Chris, Heather, Kathy, Amanda, Sue Maria, Sherry. Good to see everybody. Hey, Jen. Good to see the Mosleys. Hey, Donna, Barbara, and Leslie. Good to see all of you. Thanks for coming. Just finished our game night. We did Telestrations again tonight. That was pretty fun. Hey there, Kim and Leslie. Give people a chance to join up here. If you're new, welcome. We're just going through the New Testament, or just various books. It seems pretty random now. We've done Matthew, and we did Acts, and we did Romans, right? And I think Ephesians and Galatians. Have we done that much already? I guess we have. Who won? It was, we voted differently. Who actually won? Oh, Eden won. Eden won. She got a lot of votes. Good to see everybody. I'll give you a couple more minutes here to join up and then we'll get started. I think this needs to be off center a little bit. Oh yeah, there we go. Something was off there. Ended up being a good day today. Got some computer work done. Kids did good on their school. It was pretty warm today, which is nice. How about you guys? Do anything interesting today? I'm kind of tired. Been a long day. I think I'm emotionally tired today. Oh, that was a fun video. Sorry the quality was bad. I'm not sure why the quality would have been bad. I might need to put an outdoor thing for when we stream outside. We did make some new creamy ice cream. We made regular ice cream. I still want the kids to kind of fall in love with the machine. So I don't want to do too many strange things to begin with. I'm going to kind of ease those in. So we did all ice cream. So we did chocolate ice cream base, vanilla ice cream base, and then we did, it was like vanilla, well, it wasn't really vanilla, it was just maple flavor. I used maple syrup to flavor it, so maple ice cream. And I let them choose what they wanted to put in there, and they chose toasted coconut for the maple, chocolate had sprinkles, and vanilla had, peanut brittle. And so we did that. It ended up being pretty good. So cold. Well, you bought one? They're really fun. It's really fun. We had the sunshine today. It was an emotionally tired day, but the sunshine helped. It was for me too. It was for me too. The creamy thing is super fun. I thought it was going to be complicated. I mean, I've gone through a few of those types of machines where it's some razzle-dazzle new kitchen machine that does all kinds of things. It's usually complicated, lots of little parts, things that break or fall apart. This is very simple, really, and works well. It's easy to use, doesn't take up a lot of counter space, so we're pretty happy with it. All right, that's enough chit-chat. I think we can get started, so we'll let people who continue to join up while we continue to read. Again, if you're new, welcome. The way we do it is we just kind of listen and read through the chapter, and then we go back and just kind of talk about it. And I've been studying the Bible for a lot of years, and I have a bunch of my own opinions that I'm sure I'm right on. I try not to be too arrogant about it. So There's lots of things we can learn. I like to look at things maybe we haven't considered about certain things, and not necessarily look at the thing you automatically you've been heard in church if it doesn't necessarily be supported by the text. So to just try to put ourselves in the position of the writer of this, the audience of this, the time period of this, all the context. Those are really important to understanding these things. So, alrighty, so Luke 14, we're going to start in verse 25. That's where we left off. Here we go.
Crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said,
"If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off, and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear."
Okay, there wasn't much left in this chapter. We might have should have finished it last week. Where are we mixed up here? Okay, so where were we at before that? Oh, this is talking about the banquet, the wedding banquet, and who's worthy to come. And this is large crowds were traveling with Jesus. This definitely seems to be a break in the narration. So this is written by Luke, and so it's obviously not necessarily just writing down it as it happened. Luke, again, is somebody who researched these things out. He wasn't an eyewitness to these things. So he interviewed people like a reporter and asked about these things and put them together. So I still see this as a break. So he's now recalling another story. So large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." So this is, I think this is a difficult teaching. At first glance, it's basically, there's other parts in the other Gospels that says, doesn't love me more than these other things. But this says hate. Does not hate his father and mother, his wife, his children, brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And I'm going to tell you some things I think about it, but I'm not even exactly sure what angle he's going to here. Obviously, he's trying to say these people are traveling with him, and all these people are all going to be concerned if you don't come home, so to speak. Although even your own life, hate your own life. Hate is a strong word, Marie. It is a strong word, and you might hear Christians say today, "You're not supposed to hate anybody. You're a Christian." But there's lots of hate written in the Bible, and not necessarily that we should hate people. That's not what I'm saying. But that's not say things that it doesn't say. Here it says you're supposed to hate your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters. And obviously, the point of what he's saying here is that it costs a lot to be a disciple of Jesus. It costs everything you have. And in other places, in other Gospels, he says things like, it's going to cost you these things. That you'll have to leave behind brothers, sisters, children, fields, all these types of things. And so it could be looked at in that light, that these types of things, remember earlier, was it in this is last chapter, about man's enemies will be the members of his own household. I feel like it wasn't long ago we were looking about that. So yeah, anyways, so it's going to cause problems to follow Jesus. It causes division. Remember, he says, "I didn't come to bring sword, but division." From now on, it's going to be a father against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, all these types of things. And other places it says you will lose these things by following him, and even your own life. And so to hate your own life, that's easier to say because it's not selfish, right? To talk about hating yourself and giving yourself to God, that sounds a little easier to swallow. But then you talk about hating your mother and your father and your children, your wife. Is that what God wants to hate? No, he doesn't want you to hate those people. But in this situation, if you follow him, it's going to cost you possibly those things. Hopefully you're not too fond of them. That's I think what he's saying. Obviously not, you shouldn't be too fond of them. That's not the point. But it's still a strong one. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say this is dogmatically what he's trying to say. But I think generally that's probably accurate. That you're going to have to leave all of these things behind to follow me. Choosing him above them is difficult. It's one of the kind of reason out not to care to take the wrong direction. Agreed. Let's look at the word hate there. That's sin. I'm trying to remember the Greek word for amartia is sin, hate. I don't know if I can remember the word for hate. So I will look and see what that word is, because it is a strong word. It's one thing, I always heard it that way too, and in fact in the other Gospels it even is worded that way. But this one specifically says does not hate. It also could be a cultural thing. I think there's a few cultural things in this that maybe they just use that word a little more haphazardly than we do. Let's go look here. That's in Luke 14:25. I wasn't all queued up here. I was looking at something else. Luke 14:25. Miseo. Yeah, that's I hate. So, to detest, especially to persecute, by extension to love less, hateful. I've heard it says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Love your enemies, bless those, do good to those who hate you. Don't serve two masters, love one, hate the other. Be hated by all men. Yep, it's no doubt about it. It's a strong word. So obviously it says love less. Again, this is another good point to try to talk about these types of concordances. You get a Bible concordance and you don't know what something means, and you look it up, just like we did this right here. And we say, oh, it says right there, see? To love less. So that's what he means. You need to love them less than you love me. But that's not what it says. It's not written in English. We're reading Greek text. This little definition here was written by somebody. This is particularly from the Strong's definition. Strong's is a type of concordance based on the New American Standard Version. And they use things based on how they get translated sometimes. Obviously, I think ultimately they have a hard time. These translators, the writer of this little dictionary, had a hard time with this word, probably because of this verse. And so they throw that in there. By extension, to love less. Obviously, the person you love less is the person you hate. But if you really want to know how the Bible defines a word, it's really not necessarily good to use the definition. Get yourself a Greek interlinear like this, or an app where you can see that word is used 37 times. And you can go through and read every instance. If you read every instance of how that word is used throughout the Bible, you will then have a pretty good balanced idea of what that word means. For everyone who does evil hates the light. So that doesn't mean everybody who's evil loves the light a little bit less than the darkness. No, it means you hate the light. The world can't hate you, but it hates me because I testify it that its works are evil. So, I mean, you can say it means hate. It really just means hate. So just be careful when you read in a definition, a dictionary definition. I had one time where a guy I was talking to, actually I can show you, one of those little rabbit trails which we're talking about dictionaries. Let me find the verse that we were talking about. It's authority. submit. There we are. Oh, that's not it. That's Corinthians. Sword. There we go. This verse right here in the beginning. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. That's one of those really controversial passages. Libertarians hate this verse, so to speak, because they don't want to submit themselves to the governing authorities. And, you know, I mean, I'm a libertarian myself, but just that idea. Some people don't like to read in there that the Bible tells us we should listen to the law. But that's just what it says. And so the guy I was talking to had a very strong opinion that you should not listen to the governing authorities. And so he did not like this. So the word there is the one in power, actually. Exousia. It's in Romans 13. I don't know why we're running this out, but I figured we'd do this real fast because it makes understanding them better. Where are we at? 13:1. There we go. Parasuche exousias. So right there. Exousias. Exousia means power or authority. And so look at how it'll say things down here. In the NASB and this kind of concordance, you'll have these commas: privilege, comma, force, capacity, competency, freedom, mastery, magistrate, superhuman, potentiate, token of control, delegated influence, authority, jurisdiction, then liberty, power, right, strength. That's not all definitions. Those are different ways that it kind of can be translated and kind of mean different shades of things. But those aren't the definitions. So you can't just pick one and say, oh, authority means superhuman. There you go, superhuman. So we can go there and it says, obey those who are superhumans. So we ought to obey the superheroes. That's what that verse means. No, that's not what it means. This guy picked the word liberty. Liberty. So you should obey those in a higher liberty over to you. I mean, whoever's most free, you should obey them, which to him didn't mean government. It means what it means. If you really want to get an idea of what it means, you can look at all the verses. He taught with authority. I myself am a man under authority. The Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. You can read all the ways that those verses are used, and that gives you a much better idea. This is not a list of definitions, but a ways that translators use things, and translations can be off. I always believe this verse, hate, this context, not to call it a intense dislike for family members, rather to call the love less than Christ. I think that's generally right, Tammy, but it still says hate. And it is strongly worded word. It's a strong word. I'm not going to say Jesus is wrong. I do not think that Jesus wants us to hate our family. That's definitely not what he wants. We have enough other places where it says, love your neighbor as yourself. You don't get to hate just your family, right? It's life and God's word, amen. That's what I'm dealing with in my life. Yep, absolutely, Joanne. So it still says what it says. Maybe he's being strong, maybe he's being forceful, but maybe there's some truth to that. Not obviously that you hate them and you want to do them harm. But if you abandon them to follow him and be his disciple, it's kind of like you hate them, right? If you leave your wife and leave your kids to go follow Jesus like the disciples did, like Peter did, it is hating them. It is abandoning them. It's not necessarily good. So I don't want to rob it of its strong wordage. I think that Luke worded it strong. I think it's meant to be strong. And do with that what you will. I think people have a hard time with this verse because Jesus' words sound disrespectful to parents, which also conflicts with our values. Oh yeah, absolutely. It sounds terrible. So, but it still says what it says. But again, if you read all the words of Jesus, you don't just grab one thing and you run away that Jesus says, I gotta hate my mom, gotta hate my kids, I hate you guys, sorry, that's what it says. You can read them all, read all the words of Jesus, read all the words in red, and see if you still think that's what he meant. So, especially when you compare it with other verses, I think it's pretty clear that that is what it probably means. But Luke decided to write the word hate, and he did. So That's enough of that. I wanted to run that little rabbit trail about concordances, because I think that's one of the ways people study when they don't understand something or don't follow it. They'll go look it up in the concordance, and whatever it says, they'll just file one in the memory bank. It said that. So I don't necessarily think that's a good way to do it. In fact, they don't necessarily know. You'd be surprised how bad records were. What we have about this time is these words, the Bible. We don't have a lot of other first century works. There's very, very few, in fact. Certainly about religion and Christianity. There's very little about these things. And so trying to figure out how their culture was is not as cut and dry as you might think it is. I hate sin, I don't let it put me in God's way. So in that light, hate the family would not be let them take me out of God's way. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that's right. I think we all kind of get what he's saying here. I'm just not in the neighborhood, in the idea of necessarily needing to replace the words because it's too strong. Luke thought that word was necessary and he wrote it in there. So but there's an and, isn't there? And even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. This one I find it really, really funny. We all read this as a Christian and think, okay, yeah, I'm going to carry your cross. Carry your cross. Yeah, when they crucified Jesus. Is Jesus crucified here yet? Jesus wasn't crucified yet. They had no idea he was going to be crucified. There's a couple times where he said that they were going to put him to death. They certainly didn't know it was necessary to be by crucifixion. And he says, you don't carry his cross and follow me, cannot be my disciple. I want to know if that word is stavron, or which word that is for cross, because there's a few words for cross. One means dead wood, and dead wood might be more applicable, but I want to know what word that is, so I'm going to look. Luke 14:27. Luke 14:27. Stavron. Stake. So it really means stake. Pole or cross, instrument or capital punch, used 28 times. Take up his cross and follow me. Jesus said to his disciples, anyone desires to come after me, deny himself, take up his cross. Came out, man of Cyrene, carried the cross, destroyed this temple, built in 3 days, come down from the cross. Okay, so that's pretty. It gives us a pretty good idea. It means cross, but stavron really means stake. A lot of people think that the way we see a cross today, or the little lowercase t, is how they were, and that's generally not how they were. There's quite a lot of drawings of these types of things. A lot of times they were uppercase T's, so instead of they would look like this, or sometimes they were an X. Sometimes they were just a stick in the ground, just a pole, and you nail them to the pole. And so they all called all those things a stake, stavron. They call them a stake. I'm not sure why we call it cross. Stake would be a more accurate translation. I'd be interested where we get the word, the etymology, at least in English, of the word cross. The reason why it's a lowercase t basically comes from the fact that they said that they held a sign, they nailed a sign over Jesus' head, saying this is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. So because they nailed something over his head, they gave it that shape. And maybe it was, but could have been another shape though. I thought his burden was light. Yeah, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. But you also need to take up your cross and follow me, which makes us think that the cross that we have to take up is not necessarily the burden he was talking about and it being easy. I believe generally he was talking about the thing that's heavy, the thing that the Pharisees were teaching is, it says they strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. And that they go through all this work. He says, you load people up with heavy weights they cannot bear, but you yourselves will not lift one finger to move them. So the weight of the law is what I believe that to be referring to. The weight of trying to keep every single commandment that there is. Because we can't do it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. But we're going to fail at those things. And if you're waiting to see if you're going to get to heaven because you're doing all these things and not obeying all these rules and not sinning, that's not what gets you to heaven at all. It's only by the grace of God that we get there. We get there as a free gift because our righteousness is as filthy rags to him, it says. We're never going to be doing anything good enough to get there. Nobody ever will. So his yoke is easy. He's taken that yoke off of us. His burden is light. We don't have to carry that. But, of course, we still want to do good. We don't need to carry the weight of that. That's kind of what I think is that. As far as taking up my cross, think about what he says here. He's saying you hate your mother, your father, even his own life, and anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. It's meaning that the way I take it is that you're going to be ready to die. You need to be ready to die and lose everything you have to be my disciple. Still want to come? You know, there's one part of the Gospels, and I can't remember, maybe it's in John, where Jesus has so many followers, he basically says some really, really tough stuff, and a bunch of people leave him. And it seems like he was thinning the crowd a little bit. I don't know if this is one of those things or not, but, I mean, who wants to follow around someone famous? I mean, that's basically what they were doing, following Jesus around, doing miracles. This is so fun and so great. And Jesus is telling you it's not going to be so great. All these people are probably going to hate you. And maybe that's what it means. Willing to be hated by those people. Because in Greek, that absolutely could be the case. Sometimes it's hard to know because you change the noun to match the verb. So if you can, in Greek, you can say ball through man. And depending on which ending you give the word, it's either the man threw the ball or the ball threw the man. Obviously, you can figure out the ball didn't throw the man. But that's a cut and dry, easy to understand type scenario. Sometimes that could be the case. But even his own life, hate his own life. Yeah, that doesn't make sense either. Anyways, I think willing to die is, I think, what he's going for here. That this isn't fun to follow me. And I have to think this next part of the story is related. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees will ridicule him, saying, "This fellow began to build and was not able to finish." That doesn't happen much today with estimating and quotes and all this type of stuff. But I'm not going to lie, that could have been me. Because I'm the kind of person that's like, let's build a house, let's do it. I got some wood over there. I think I got enough. And I would just start doing it. And it's not uncommon. Andrea used to tease me all the time that I would, how about today first we'll go to the store, we get done, maybe we'll go for a walk. Then when we get done with that, maybe we take the kids to the park, go out, get something to eat, and we'll come home and watch a movie. And she's like, Tommy, we can't do all that. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure we can do it. And I was terrible at estimating. That's just completely not related to this story, I don't think. But imagine how embarrassing that would be to have a half-built house. And so what is he saying here again? If you want to build a house, you have to first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it. I think this is referring again to these people that wanted to follow him. They want to follow him, and they need to sit down and decide if you're willing to hate your wife, father, mother, sisters, brothers, kids, your own life, willing to die on a cross. Are you willing to pay that cost to come with me? Otherwise, you're going to be ridiculed. You start off with him saying to your fair weather friend, you only like the Dodgers when they're winning. Those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think that's what he's basically getting at. I'm pretty confident with that. But still, lots of ways you can understand that. Or, suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose one coming at him with 20,000? If he's not able, he'll send a delegation while others still a long way off and ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. That pretty much is the whole description, the translation, the meaning of everything that he just said. think when Jesus took up this cross, he was acknowledging vulnerability? Oh, I don't know. I think he took up the cross because they told him to take up the cross. Of course, that man from Cyrene also carried the cross. Simon carried the cross for him. So, depending on which gospel you read, one gospel that happens, one gospel that doesn't happen. I think he was just doing it because that's what he was told to do. He was not going to the cross. I mean, he prayed on the Garden of Gethsemane 3 times for God to take this from him and not have to die on the cross. Jesus didn't want to die on the cross. Let that soak in a little bit. No one wants to say that, but it's true. He said, all things are possible for you. Take this cup from me. He didn't want to do it. He did want to obey his Father and do his Father's will. And once he knew that was his Father's will, he did it willingly and happily. But he would rather not. So he was just doing what he was told, is the way I look at it. Same thing, though. If you're about to go to war and you don't got enough men, you can't win, you're going to go make peace. You better do that first. If you're not willing to be an enemy with your family, you're not willing to die, take up your cross, then you should probably not do it. Then we have those words about salt. I've always been confused about this. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? How does salt lose its saltiness? I've never heard of such a thing. Can salt lose saltiness? I don't think it can. Sodium chloride is always sodium chloride. Of course, if it did lose its saltiness, it wouldn't be good for anything. But I happen to wonder if maybe there's another cultural thing here. I often sometimes wonder if it's actually the word salt we're talking about here. I don't know the word for salt. I doubt it's used that many times. Any word used less than 10 times, I don't know. 34. Let's just see real fast for curiosity's sake. Alas, is that it? Yeah. Alas. Salt, figuratively prudence. Interesting. Used 4 times. You are the salt of the earth. Salt is good. Salt is good. Speech seasoned with salt. Those words, that's used so seldomly that it makes me even wonder how accurate they could possibly be. A lot of time when it comes to spices, birds, names of stones, they don't always have them correct. Alas. Primary word, salt. Everyone will be salted with fire. It doesn't say sprinkled with fire. It says salted with fire. I don't know. I don't know about salt losing its saltiness, but if it did, I certainly wouldn't know how to go about making it salty again. It's fit neither for the soil. I don't know why you put salt in the soil, nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears, let him hear. I just keep wondering if it doesn't mean something else or refer to something else. Regardless, we understand the analogy here. There's this good thing, and if you lose your goodness, how are you? Maybe you're not good for nothing. You're thrown out. You're not even good enough for the manure pile. So, if you're gonna be salty, if you're gonna follow me, you better follow me. If you lose your nerve, you quit, you run out of money, you run out of men to fight, don't do it. Can it mean your faith? Yeah, I think that is probably what it means, Kathy. I think you're right. I think it does. I think it is a reference to those types of things. Specifically, I think he's talking to those people that wanted to follow him. Probably all are excited. Let's go do this. Let's go change the world. And of course, what happens? Jesus tells even his disciples, we'll never leave you. Even if I have to die with you, I'll never leave you. And then the Romans come and they all scatter. Nobody stays with Jesus. So even after being warned that you're all going to flee from me, they all swear loyalty, they leave. So that's some tough stuff. I like to think if I had been there, I wouldn't have left, but I probably would have. I saw an interesting with Jordan Peterson interviewing a reporter about Hitler. They were interviewing him, asking him about Hitler anyways. They said the guy was the reporter was something like, boy, if I had been in Nazi Germany in those days, I would have stood up against them and told them they were full of garbage. And he was like, no, you wouldn't. Nobody would have done that. It takes an incredible person to be able to stand up in the face of a whole country of people telling you you're wrong. You're going to go along with them because that's just how human nature is. And so we can say we wouldn't be the doubting Thomas. I would believe him without seeing. More blessed are they that believe and have not seen. I would have believed in you, Jesus. What did the Pharisees say? Oh, we're not part of those who just killed the prophets. We're just taking care of their tombs. So I do think faith is a good applicable meaning of this. Whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do it, do it. Don't look stupid by turning back. If you're going to be salty, or you're worthless. Another place Jesus says, it kind of reminds me of this, anybody who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is not worthy to be my disciple. Meaning that you're going to work, you're putting your hand on the plow, you're starting to work, and you look back like, I don't know, do I want to do this? Because you're not worthy. You need to be all in. And of course, this is talking to them. Do we need to be all in to be his disciple? We probably should be. But I think this is specifically referencing Jesus' time, where Jesus is going to be crucified, where he's going to go through these difficult times in the time he was in. Probably definitely speaking to the people he was around at the time, although he still can have a lot of lessons here for us. That wasn't many verses. We want to start 15. We want to just, I think maybe we just run some rabbit trails, or else just talk some more. What do you guys think of that stuff? You ever start to build something and didn't have enough to finish? Being lukewarm? Yeah, I think so. I think that is being lukewarm. In the passage about lukewarm, that's to the church of Laodicea in Revelation. It says, you are neither hot nor cold. I would wished you were one or the other. But since you are lukewarm, I'll vomit you out of my mouth. He wished you were one or the other. He wished you were cold instead of lukewarm. Isn't that something to think about? Lukewarm is worse than being cold. Of course, being hot is the ideal. So that goes back down to being a hypocrite. If you're going to say you're all on fire for God and you're not, you're better off not even following him. Because to be a hypocrite, halfway, is not a place we want to be. Start 15. I don't know if we got enough to even to play it through. So, parable. 99 sheep. Well, I think we'll wait. Because I can probably talk about that parable for a while. Lukewarm is unsure, confused. At least when someone's not cold, it's definite. Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably right, Double. The idea of someone looking back again. That I want to follow God, but I not really, not today. It's a weekend and I'm a little busy. I'd like to go out drinking or whatever it is. Not that there's anything wrong with drinking necessarily. But the Hebrew use of salt, it was used in purification. It used to be saltiness, making more or less a believer. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, salt, they didn't have refrigerators then. So salt was the primary means to cure food. It wasn't necessarily just in Hebraic circles, but of course it was. The salted meat could last a lot longer. So salt was used to preserve things, for sure. It was a preservative. It was their primary preservative. It also was used to season food. It was a very useful thing to have, salt. And made any food taste better. So, I still don't know about losing its saltiness. Become less of a believer? Yeah, I mean, I suppose all those things are true. I think it's generally, again, the point about losing the saltiness. It's goes back to this commitment again. Got to be committed. I know that's the point he's making. That if you're going to do something, you do it. If you start off salty and you stop being salty, you're no longer useful for anything. If you start off following me and you turn back, you're worthless. Alrighty, well, I guess we can probably stop there. Where are we at? Oh, we got still some decent time. 20 minutes. Did I start that late? I guess I did. Well, oh well. Let's go ahead and do a prayer, and we'll close out. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time here, for all these people, these fun conversations we have, and these thoughts and reasonings. And we thank you for the words of Jesus. We thank you that he taught them wisely and applicably to their situation. Help us to be the kind of people who do not lose their saltiness, Lord. That we weigh the cost of the building we're building, and that we set out to finish it. Please give us the diligence to do that, to not look back, to not run out of money, to not lose our saltiness, to not hate all the things in our life except for you. Help us to be able to follow you and to seek after you with all of our heart. Please be with us this week. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, thank you, Naomi. That's great. Amen, everybody. So don't forget to like the video on your way out. We certainly appreciate all of you guys. Next video will be our Thursday shopping. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Veronica. I guess the term salty is used. Yeah, it is. I use salty all the time. Well, don't be salty. Yeah, funny how words can totally change 100%, right? I remember when bad as good, oh, that's bad. When I was a kid, that was like cool. It's funny how things can change all the way around. All right. Well, we will see you later. Thanks, guys.